AI is not coming to gaming. It is already here, and the industry is starting to look like it has no clue how to handle what it invited into the room. Steam now has a formal generative AI disclosure section in its content survey. It separates pre-generated AI content from live-generated AI systems, and it asks developers to explain how AI is used and what safeguards are in place. That is not a tiny policy tweak, that is a platform quietly admitting that the flood is already underway. And that is the part that makes this whole situation so ugly. Because for years people talked about AI in games like it was just another tool. A faster brush, a smarter helper, a harmless little shortcut for tedious work. But now the mask is off. AI is not just helping build games. It is changing the rules of who gets hired, what gets produced, how much gets produced, and how much human effort the industry thinks it still needs. In other words, this is not a feature update, this is a power shift, and when companies start talking about the future in that kind of language, they usually mean one thing: cheaper output, faster output, and fewer people standing in the way of it. Mike Rose, the founder of No More Robots, said the industry is cooked, and from a publisher's perspective, the flood of AI-generated content is mega annoying. He pointed to AI key art and AI content making it harder for real games to stand out, including around Steam Next Fest. That is not some random emotional overreaction from a guy yelling at clouds. That is a publisher looking at the market and seeing the ground rot under his feet, and honestly he is not wrong. Because once the storefront fills up with algorithmic garbage, the people making real human, weird, expensive, time-consuming games are the ones who get buried first. AI does not need to make the best art in the world, it just needs to make enough art, fast enough, cheap enough, and in enough volume to drown everybody else out. That is the trick, that is the threat. It is not that AI is a genius, it is that AI is scalable. And gaming companies love scalable things. They love them so much that they will call them innovation, transformation, optimization, and next generation strategy until the words mean nothing. Then they will turn around and act shocked when the human side of the industry starts screaming. Capcom is a great example of this double life. The company said it has already used AI in bug checking for quality control and in RE Engine to improve development efficiency. But in the same report, it also admitted serious concerns about generative AI, including training data, rights, security, and talent-related issues. So yes, they are using it, and yes, they are worried it could still blow up in their faces. That is basically the entire gaming industry in one paragraph, and that contradiction matters, because it tells you these companies are not fully committed to some brave new creative future, they are committed to whatever gets them the best short-term result. If AI speeds up development, they love it. If it causes legal panic, they call it a concern. If it replaces a few people, they call it efficiency. If the public gets mad, they call it a misunderstanding. That is the corporate rhythm. But the story gets even nastier when you look at Take-Two PC Gamer, reported that Take-Two has seemingly laid off an unspecified portion of its AI team, including its head of AI, Luke Dicken. According to the report, Dicken said his time with the company has come to an end. That matters because this happened after Take-Two had already publicly talked up generative AI and said it was actively embracing it. So, on one hand, the company is hyping AI as part of the future. On the other hand, it is laying off part of the AI team. That is not confidence, that is instability wearing a tie. And that is exactly why this story is so good for a video, because it is not just AI is in gaming, everybody already knows that. The real story is that the whole industry is acting like it has no stable plan for what AI is supposed to be. Some companies want it in production, some want it in support, some want it in quality control, some want it in anti-cheat, some want it in customer service, some want it in everything. And then one of the biggest companies in gaming quietly starts cutting part of its AI team. That is the sound of an industry trying to build a future while also panicking about it. And then there is the Steam GPT rumor, which is exactly the kind of thing that makes this topic even more unsettling. Datamined Steam files have pointed to something called Steam GPT with reporting, suggesting Valve may be exploring AI for support automation and anti-cheat systems. Nothing about that has been officially confirmed as a finished public product, but the leak itself is enough to show where Valve's thinking may be heading. If that turns out to be real, it would not be the flashy consumer-facing AI nonsense people usually imagine. It would be back-end AI, invisible AI, the kind that does not sell itself as magic but slowly becomes part of the plumbing. That is often how the biggest changes arrive, quietly. And personally, that is the part I find the most dangerous. Not the loud, stupid AI demos, not the marketing slides with glowing robots and fake future speak. The dangerous part is the silent version. The version that gets folded into support, moderation, anti-cheat, moderation, testing, and maybe later development itself, until nobody can point at one place and say that was the moment it took over. Because by then the takeover already happened, it just happened in pieces. Steam's disclosure system makes that point even stronger. Valve is not treating generative AI like some tiny side issue. It is forcing developers to disclose whether content is pre-generated or live generated, and it says it will review AI generated content using the same standards as non-AI content, including whether the game meets its promises and marketing claims. That tells you Valve understands the scale of the problem. It also tells you Valve knows that a lot more of this is coming. And once a platform starts formalizing the rules, the chaos has already escaped the lab. The real tragedy is that gaming used to be the place where human obsession mattered, the weird little studio project, the artist who spent too long on one creature design, the writer who cared too much about a side character, the designer who kept iterating because the first 10 versions were not good enough. That is the soul of gaming. That is what made this medium feel alive, and AI threatens to flatten all of that into a production race, where the loudest winner is always the one who can make the most stuff in the least time. That is why I do not buy the cheerful version of this future. I do not buy that this will empower creativity line when the same companies keep using it to justify layoffs, cuts, and consolidation. If a company can tell investors it is embracing AI and then turn around and remove part of the AI team, then maybe the real product is not innovation. Maybe the real product is uncertainty. Maybe the real product is the ability to say whatever sounds good this quarter and reverse course the moment it becomes inconvenient. And gaming is already full of enough nonsense without adding another layer of machine-generated confusion on top of it. That brings us to Rockstar and Take-Two, because even if this is not the main AI story, it is part of the same corporate mess. Rockstar has already been in the middle of major controversy over firing dozens of employees and being accused of union busting, with Take-Two saying the workers were dismissed for gross misconduct and later claiming they had been distributing confidential information. That is a separate issue from AI, but it still matters because it shows the larger company is already under pressure, already controversial, and already willing to go into damage control mode when things get messy. That is the environment AI is walking into. A paranoid, cost-obsessed, publicly messy industry that wants the upside of automation without admitting the human cost. And that is why I think the conversation is already being framed too softly. People keep asking whether AI will change gaming. It already has. The better question is whether gaming is going to become a medium where human work is the premium exception instead of the norm, because that is where this is heading if nobody pushes back hard enough. The cheap route becomes the default. The default becomes expected, as then expected becomes unavoidable. And once that happens, companies stop asking whether a human should do the job at all. Ed Fries, the former Microsoft Xbox VP, said AI is the big question mark for the future of gaming and argued that there will not be a clean line between AI and non-AI anymore. That sounds like a prediction, but it also sounds like a surrender. If there is no line left to draw, then the company gets to decide everything under the guise of normal progress. That is not a future I trust. And I will say it plainly, I think the worst thing AI does to gaming is not replacing the best people immediately. It is making mediocrity feel efficient, it is making cheap look smart, it is making the industry feel like it can solve every problem with fewer people and more automation. That mindset is poison. It kills ambition slowly, it kills taste slowly, it kills accountability slowly. And by the time everybody notices, the output is already hollow. Quick pause here. If you're enjoying the video, subscribe and leave a like, because this channel lives for gaming chaos like this. The most disturbing thing about the Take-Two AI layoffs is that they expose the lie behind the hype. If AI was truly the future in the way executives keep talking about it, then why is the AI team getting cut? If the strategy is so strong, why is the structure already wobbling? If the investment is so smart, why does the company look like it is trimming the very people it said would help lead the change? That inconsistency is the story, not because layoffs are rare in this industry, but because they happen in the exact place where the company was trying to sell certainty. And certainty is what AI has been pretending to offer from day one. It promises faster work, it promises lower costs, it promises fewer bottlenecks, it promises scale, it promises to make everything look easier, but the closer you look, the more it feels like AI is just moving the burden somewhere else. From artists to reviewers, from writers to moderators, from dev teams to legal teams, from production to policy, from craft to conflict. Every shortcut creates a new mess in a different room. That is why the Steam disclosure system matters. That is why the Capcom admissions matter. That is why the Steam GPT rumor matters. That is why the Take-Two layoffs matter. Put all of it together and you get a very simple picture. Gaming is not adopting AI cleanly. It's stumbling into it, arguing about it, monetizing it, and then trying to hide the fallout behind polished language. And that is exactly the kind of story people want to click. Because this is not a boring tech update, this is drama, it is industry hypocrisy, it is corporate panic, it is human work being squeezed by automation while the people in charge try to sell it as progress, and the audience can feel that tension instantly. That is why this topic hits. So here's the real takeaway. AI is not saving gaming, it is not destroying gaming either. It is exposing gaming, it is exposing which companies were already leaning on shortcuts. It is exposing how quickly innovation becomes a justification for layoffs. It is exposing how fragile the creative pipeline really is when the cheapest option enters the room. And it is exposing that a lot of the people selling the future do not actually seem to know where the future ends and the damage begins. That is the part I would hammer hard in the video, because people do not just want news, they want a point of view, and my point of view is simple. This industry is getting too comfortable calling every efficiency win a victory, even when the long-term result is a weaker, flatter, more disposable kind of gaming. Steam GPT may end up being real, or it may stay a rumor, Take-Two may be restructuring its AI strategy, or it may be quietly backing away from something that did not work. But none of that changes the bigger story. The bigger story is that gaming has entered an era where AI is no longer a debate on the sidelines. It is inside the machine, inside the business model, and inside the argument over what games are supposed to be. And once you cross that line, there is no clean way back. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, leave a like if you want more videos like this, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.